Beer has been around for millennia and so has been a large part of life from as early as 9500 BC. It is speculated that beer existed before this, but the earliest written evidence of beer comes from ancient Iraq and Egypt. Beer was a very important product in these days as it provided the much-needed prosperity that allowed people the power to improve infrastructure and make technological advancements.
Beer only hit Europe in about 3000 BC, but this beer was very different from the beer we drink today. It was brewed mainly at home. They were made from fermented fruits, honey, plants, spices, and even herbs that are nowadays associated with narcotic substances. Europe was the first nation to add hops to their beer in around 822 AD. In 1516, the purity law was created, which is still in force today, that states that beer may only be made of water, hops, and barley malt. Beer only became produced on a macroeconomic scale during the Industrial Revolution. Nowadays, the brewing industry operates on a global scale.
And now, beer brewing style. American Amber is one of America's most popular recipes. The aroma of the hops found within the brew should not be too powerful, and they are popular for their caramel and malt flavor. These brews are very easy to make, and the possibilities are truly endless. The end product usually brings out a very lush red. American Pale Ale is one of the best beginner beers to start out with. It's simple to make and brings out great flavor. The hops used to produce this beer results in an almost bitter taste with great flavors and aromas. This is also a popular choice because it lets you experiment with hops additions without ruining the drink. The last option here is a double. This is a slightly more complicated brew for beginners, as the yeast requires a great deal of oxygen to begin the fermentation process. Using white sugar for this brew will result in an off flavour, and on the other hand, brown sugar has too much flavour. It also needs to be aged for at least a month before it's ready to be served. The beer production process. The beer production process can be divided into 4 steps. These are malting, preparing the wort, the local fermentation, and cooling and filling. In the malting process, the malt is crushed in a malt mill to break apart and mash the grain kernels. It is then combined with brewing water, turning the starch into malt sugar. This is then turned into wort. The brewing kettle then boils the wort, and hops is added to influence the final taste of the beer. This boiling process is responsible for determining whether the beer will be strong or light, as well as the alcohol content. Next is the fermentation process, where the yeast is added. This converts the malt sugar into CO2 and alcohol. The beer can be divided or moved from one tank to another in order to make sure that the brew gets enough time to mature before it is served. After quality control has tested the brew, it is allowed to be sold. At this point, the kegs are filled with beer and is shipped off or stored. The finished product can be used to fill bottles, which are also sold. Culture influences on beer. Although European and Dutch immigrants brought a great deal of knowledge to South Africa about beer, the Sotho, Zulu and Xhosa tribes have been brewing different forms of beer many moons before international immigrants arrived. This is a small influence on beer though, as most larger influences come from overseas. Trends in beer. One of the top new trends out there is a motel that's all about beer, named a craft beer motel. They have everything in their rooms, flavoured and scented like beer, from soaps to foods. They say heaven is a place on earth. Well then I guess we found it. A beer camp has sprung up in Nevada, and it seems like a great deal of international countries and breweries are supporting this idea and creating such events themselves. Monks who are known to brew beers have grabbed the attention of people throughout the world. At the moment, there are only 11 breweries worldwide that are allowed to have the sticker of approval for this. This year, as soon as summer hits, sour beers will become the in thing, as they're described as not heavy or rich like winter beers. The decline of light beer is something that has also grabbed the world's attention. People no longer seem to enjoy light beers as much as they used to, and breweries are beginning to produce them less than usual.